evening, keepers of the cash. Gary B, the Casual Comic Guy here, and welcome to another episode of In the Hot Seat with the Usual Suspects. Joining me as every Thursday night, we got my good buddy Digger Jim down in the corner. Jim, how you doing today, sir?
I am doing great. The weekend has started, and happy early Memorial Day. Woohoo!
Yeah, I'm on my weekend tomorrow and Saturday, which is my normal weekend. I'll be working on Sunday, but I'm feeling better. Jim talked to me earlier. He's like, "Hey, how about that link?" I'm like, "Oh yeah," because I had a total of like an hour and 45 minutes of sleep for 2 days, so I had to do a little catching up today. Yeah. I was feeling a little wonky. So I'm all good now, though. Of course, joining me as another co-host, you see him as a regular contributor and guest on the channel, none other than Anachronic Comics Joe himself.
Joe, keep it casual, guys. Keep it casual.
And we got a special episode coming up with Joe, and we're not going to spoil what that topic is yet. You'll just have to stay tuned to both our channels to find out. But it's going to be a fun one. But of course, we're not here for any of us three goofballs. We're here for the main attraction, and that is none other than our good community supporter and all-around excellent dude, Mr. Doug Bratton. Doug, how you doing tonight, sir?
I'm doing great, Gary. Thanks so much for having me on.
Oh, it's a pleasure, as always, buddy. So we're here to obviously talk about your Kickstarter and isolation. It's already meeting with a lot of success. But real quick, we're going to have you just introduce yourself to the crowd, to anyone who's not familiar with you that's going to be tuning in on the Rewind. And then we'll say hi to the chat, and then we'll come back and start the interview with you.
Sounds great. Well, my name is Doug Bratton. One of many hats that I wear in life is as a writer and cartoonist. And I've been writing comics since I was 8 years old with my brother Dave, and I love creating comics. I love writing, and the last few years I've been focusing on my comic Isolation, which I started writing for Swolger Publishing. That Reggie collects, or Reggie Simmons, but people in the comics YouTube community would know as Reggie Collects. Started that publishing house after we co-wrote a guide on comic book collecting together.
Nice. So that was your first foray into like actual published comic book work. Just talking about comics, but not an actual comic book itself.
Yeah, traditional action comic books. Because of my cartooning, I have books of comics, but those were short form humor comics, very different.
Right, a very different way you set up the panels. Only so many panels that you can tell your joke in or your punchline or get your point across. So it's a whole different skill set when you're thinking one thing to the other. All right, let's say hi to the crowd. Let's keep this in mind because I got some questions for you. So joining us first, as always, we got Las Cruces. Good evening, James. Nice to see you. We got Steve White, who's going to catch us on the Rewind because he's selfish and he's got to sleep for work. I don't know what that's like, Steve.
Lame.
We appreciate you, Steve. We have the OG herself, Miss Tina Carrington.
Tina.
We have another good regular here, Brad Wellbore. Good evening, Brad. Nice to see you, sir. We have Trev, the shipping guru. Good evening, Trev. Nice to see you. Thank you for stopping in. And we have Joe saying hi to everybody. We have the Jackson Roy Kirk. And if you don't get the name reference, you guys need to do some Star Trek research. Yeah. We have 23 Munch, one of the great people in our community who gives away art every Saturday on his show. So tune in. He does art live. He does sketches. He shares his hauls. He's on after I'm already in bed for work. But he is a great guy and does some great things over there. So please go check him out. And we have Mr. DJ Links. Good evening, DJ. Nice to see you, sir. Thank you for stopping in. Go check out DJ's channel. Later tonight, tomorrow night, it's going to be In the Mix on Fridays. Check out In the Mix with DJ Links. You're going to have some more comics curing cancer news there. And also just some great products and contests they've been running. Yeah. And if you're not following DJ, you're missing some of the best edited videos and entertaining videos on the interwebs. We have Dave Bratton, who will be coming up on this show twice. one. He's coming up on the 10-1-1, and then he's going to do another 10-1-1 with action figures. He's going to be our first action figure 10-1-1.
Nice.
So no pressure, Dave, but we know you got it. I'm looking forward to seeing all the Superman goodness. Mr. DVH from across the pond, just a hop, skip away. So nice to see you, DVH. Great horror guy in our community who's got fantastic taste in movies and a fun channel. A lot of wrestling on there as well. All right. And we have Paul, Psychedelic Comics. Good evening, sir. Nice to see you. We have Inja Binja. Nice to see you. Thank you so much for coming in. Another great in the community right there. And we are Couching and Slouching with C. Bizzle. Good afternoon, sir. Nice to see you. And I think for the moment we are through. Now, we won't keep interrupting you tonight, Doug. We're just going to give them a quick tip of the hat as they come in. But let's get back to you, the man of the hour. So one of the first things I wanted you to discuss is kind of an aside from the Kickstarter is, like you mentioned, you did this thing on Reggie's channel, Reggie Flex, and you built up a lot of goodwill over there. You built up a great name for yourself. And when this project launched, you were pretty much already at 100% and successful. So that, if your book had come out and it wasn't met with the praises it was given already, it wouldn't have hit that quick. So obviously you're doing something right with the project. You're involved with good people, and we'll get to that as well. You've had great support from Reggie and the people there in this community. So what has the community support? Did it make it easier for you going into the Kickstarter? Did you expect a quick success, or were you surprised by the overwhelming gratitude and embracing of the comic community and the reading community at large?
I was shocked, not because of the kindness and outpouring of support, because there's a lot of wonderful people in the community that I've been fortunate enough to get to know. But I've never done. Oh, there's my mom. Hi, Mom. I've never done a Kickstarter before. I've all of the published work that I have, pretty much, except for early in my newspaper comic days, was through other publishers. So I've never done Kickstarter. I've backed other Kickstarters and I've supported them. But I don't have a YouTube channel like you and Joe and Reggie. And I just didn't know what to expect when we launched it. I know there's a lot of wonderful people out there, and we did have great support for Isolation with Swelger Publishing, but I just had no idea how the Kickstarter would go, and I was overwhelmed and appreciative by all the people who showed up right at the beginning to help me get sleep that first night when it was already funded.
Well, I think that's a testament to the previous project you did. I mean, if you don't put out a good product, people will know. So clearly that your product is superior, and that's why they supported it.
Well, I have my own reasons why. I think the reason why is that you read through these first four issues, which are going to be, combined in the graphic novel and the Kickstarter. And once you read through those four, you're going to want to support them because you want to see what happens next, because it's written so well and the mystery just keeps building. And I know I'm going through withdrawal pains.
So he left you on a cliffhanger.
At the end of this story,
he left you on a cliffhanger, is what you're saying.
Just building and building. It's such a terrific story.
The old cliffhanger.
Now, what I think is exciting about the Kickstarter, at least from my perspective, Doug, is as someone that got to know you after you had already been published and had a few issues out, and knowing I couldn't get the back issues, it was tough for me to invest in issues 3 and 4 if I couldn't read 1 and 2. Now that's gone. Now you can bring in new audiences. They can read the whole issues 1 through 4. You got a clean slate and a new format. And I think that's really exciting because I was so relieved that I got to read the whole story. As someone that got to know you, really enjoyed you as a human being first, and then as a respected author second. but it was really exciting for me to be able to know I was going to be able to read the complete story. And I think there's a group of people out there that are going to get to experience this for the first time, much like myself. So hopefully that's something that you've been thinking about as well.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, Gary. And absolutely, when I found out from Reggie that he was not going to continue publishing and his YouTube channel, and I thought about doing a Kickstarter with the creative team. It's not just me. The other members of the creative team are also very involved. We really talked through and had two main goals. One was we wanted a trade as an easy on board for readers. You know, a lot of people buy issue number 1 because it's issue number 1, and you know, you hope it's worth some money someday. But it's especially in an indie comic that has a non-consistent publishing schedule. It's not in tons of comic shops, so it's hard to find. It's a low print run comic book. We really wanted an easy way for new readers to pick it up. So that was the number one first goal. And then the second one, which I've talked about, is the money we're raising through the Kickstarter is to fund the art team for future issues so we can continue it in comic book form.
Okay. Now, so future issues will be single issues instead of collected formats each time? Or still to be determined?
I'll say it depends on the final number where we land with the Kickstarter. You know, I would trust me, I would love it if we had enough to pay the art team to do Ghosts and Nightmares, which is the next 4 chapters of Isolation as one collection. I would sign up for it in a heartbeat. I know that's a high bar. So,
so right now, just to be clear to everybody that's out there, you can still go and support the Kickstarter, right?
Yes, it's going on now, and I think it ends on June. I want to say the morning of June 7th, so let's just call it June 6th.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure if I go into
and we do have the link for the Kickstarter in the description below. And if you're reading the scroll I put on the bottom, go follow Doug on IG, and you guys will be able to keep up with any updates that he gives, any current and future projects, and any appearances he has coming up. And his IG is also in the description.
Now, there's 14 days left, Doug. Not sure where that brings us.
Yep, 2 more weeks.
2 more weeks.
Yep. Now let's talk about the style of this compared to what you now previously. You were most known for comedy and situational writing, right? So when you're switching gears, first, what inspired you to go to the horror mystery route? And so what made you want to switch? Did you just randomly get an idea and go, all right, I need to try this style out? And how difficult was it for you to switch gears from what you previously did to a whole new genre altogether?
They are opposite ends of the spectrum. You know, I did a single gag panel for newspapers and magazines. So you're literally writing one-off shorts. And now I've gone to a multiple volume long form mystery, which is very, very different. I think just part of, and Gary, you know this because you're a writer, you always have different ideas. And, you know, there's never enough time to write them all. So when I was doing my newspaper comic and had daily deadlines, I would just keep my notebook and write down different ideas. And when I stopped doing the newspaper comic, I took a short break and really got that itch to get out of that short break and back into writing. Because when you're a creative person, I think you always have that desire to do it.
And the ideas never stop coming.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I just kind of went through my notebook of all the different ideas and things that I'd written down that I wanted to work on someday when I wasn't doing the newspaper comic. And the first one that I sat down and did was not Isolation. It was actually a script for a Batman graphic novel. And that was also what I would call a nonlinear complex mystery story, which I really enjoyed. And once I did that, I think then I got the itch to switch over to isolation, because I just wrote the Batman graphic novel script because I really liked the idea and just wanted to do it, and just wanted to, I'd focus so much on doing something for newspapers, magazines, for a consumer market, that I wanted a palate cleanser. Like, what's just something that I want to write for me, that I want to write.
Exercise that demon, get it out.
Yeah. So, but as soon as I did it, then I was like, oh, this is really good and fun. And there's one publisher on the planet that can do anything with it. So I'd had this idea and a lot of notes on isolation, which very different from the Batman graphic novel, but a non-linear complex mystery in multiple time periods. So I was like, okay, now I can do that with my own characters, and I don't have to be limited by if DC someday, happen to want to do it, then great.
Right. And it's your own IP, you own it, which is, there's something to be said for that as well.
Absolutely.
Characters you own. But I do want to ask you about the creative team and the art style. But I think before we do that, we should actually play the trailer so people know what we're talking about.
Yep.
Ooh,
sounds good.
Yeah.
Sounds good to you guys?
Yep.
All right, let's get it on the stage here. And actually, let's see if we can. We're gonna make this full screen when we do this. And this is the isolation trailer for the Doug's Bratton Kickstarter. Now, how awesome is that of a trailer?
Yeah, that was cool.
And now these things don't happen by themselves. I don't think enough people talk about it. So first of all, let's give credit to who cut your trailer together for you.
My brother Dave, who I believe is in the chat. Dave is
that's a phenomenal trailer.
Creative. Oh, he's very creative and has been doing and making great videos for many years, and has done so for himself and other clients. And I think, Dave, I don't know if you throw it in the chat or not, if some of your videos are up on YouTube, but he does amazing trailers and offered to do this to support isolation, which I greatly appreciate it.
And great music selection too. Is that original music you guys got, or did you have to buy rights for it? Or
I believe Dave could better answer that. I think he has access to music that is, I guess, open to any creator using it.
Copyright.
I think there are some police banging on his door right now, and thankfully that.
And Gary, I will probably talk about this, but the trailer's amazing, but he used art from issues 1 through 4 of Isolation. Every piece of art that was in the trailer was done by Adelia Gunderson, Chase Cowan, and Elizabeth Sharland, our letterer, and is also a cover artist, one of our cover artists for Isolation. So I want to give them credit because they do absolutely beautiful work.
Nice.
Well, that is the perfect segue, because that's what my next line of questions are. Because when you're creating something like a comic book, you're usually not doing it by yourself. So, how did you find your creative team? How did you decide on an art style? How did you decide what was going to be black and white, what was going to be color? So, a little bit behind, you know, why was it monetary to tell it in black and white, or did it fit the way you were telling the story? Because people like me who read the old black and white magazines, we love that style of art. And
Yes.
one of the things for me is that style of art is really eye-catching, but it's certainly different from anything that you've been a part of in your past work. So how did you decide on that art style? Did somebody send you samples? Did you decide this is the right feel, or what was that process for you?
So I'm very fortunate that I live about 5 to 10 minutes away from the Joe Kubert School of Comic and Cartoon Art, which was the first, I guess, trade school or school of higher education in the world that focused on teaching comic art. Right. And I grew up in the area. I took Saturday morning classes there. I now I've gotten to know the owner, Anthony Marquez, who's an incredible artist who does work on Batman. And I knew that if I ever got this greenlit, I wanted to approach the Kubert School and find an art team through the Kubert School. And that's what I did.
Nice.
Nice.
And why not give someone their break, right? Get someone known that's not known. And obviously knocking it out of the park with the art style. It's amazing. Yeah. It sets a tone instantly when you're looking at it, and it sets an atmosphere, which is what this is. You classify it as a mystery horror thriller.
Yes.
Tone and atmosphere are so important in that genre.
Absolutely. And I knew, the work that I did with newspaper and magazines is very cartoony, very simplistic. I could never illustrate a book the way that these true professionals can do it. And there's, I think people think of the talent that artists have, but it's also a tremendous amount of learning and hard work. And those who graduate from the Kubert School go through 3 years of very intensive training, learning about perspective and storytelling and, camera angle placement, like storyboarding, all of the things that I think people just see artwork and they think, oh, that looks really good, but might not understand how much of a craft goes into it. And, that's true for the writing too, but the artwork and telling a story while making a very visually interesting page.
Right, because panel-to-panel storytelling is a real thing, and it enhances the writing.
Right,
absolutely. Because if the panel-to-panel is not good, it actually hurts the writing.
100%.
So Doug, when you went through this, obviously you met the artists, you got to see some samples, and then you wrote, and you did write, and you didn't use the Marvel method, right? You used the actual panel by panel description method. So you send that to the artist, let's say Delia, one of them that's there, and they're going to now interpret basically what you've said there and make it into a graphic, and they're going to send it to you. Could you tell us a little bit about that process? And how did that work? Did you see something that clicked right away with the artists, or was it a little bit more of a growth process where you had to maybe go back and forth a little bit so they kind of got the full feeling of what you were trying to bring across?
So there is back and forth. I think in any collaborative form, there should be. It's part of writing a script is giving enough information so the artist knows visually what needs to be on the page, what words are going to be on the page, so they leave the appropriate space for a letter to do that. But you don't want to be so, you want your artist to have some creative freedom to know how big they want to make the establishing shot, what angles they want to use. And it's that balance between saying, this is what I need to appear in these panels, but letting them have the freedom to figure out the best way to do that and interpret that. And
Right.
with Delia, is interesting because Chase, the other artist and Delia were very different, and you learn this through working with them. Delia would like to minimize panels if she could, so there might be a page where there's a conversation, and I wrote it as 6 panels, and she occasionally would come back and say, hey, I think I could combine these 2 panels or these 3, and it would be visually more interesting, and help me lay the page out better. And every time I would say, absolutely, great idea. Let's do that. Chase, I found, liked to break things down so he could show elements of a story more. So there were occasionally pages where I'd give to Chase with 4 panels, and he might add 1 or 2 intermediary ones to show kind of motion or action in a different way. So
Right.
I think
having to have that trust with your creative team, that's key.
Absolutely. And
we got a question from the audience for you after you finish your thought.
Oh, I was just going to say that that process is really the penciler will submit thumbnails, which are basically layouts and very rough pages. Right. And that will be approved to finish, or there will be some back and forth about maybe changing something. Uh-huh. And then the finished pencils come. After the finished pencils, if there's anything last minute that needs touch up, that's when it happens. Something that you might not have noticed in the thumbnails. There's a scene in issue number 1 where there's an axe murder, and the type of shoes that were on the person were a different kind than needed to be there. But you didn't see that in the thumbnails. You saw it in the finished pencils. So occasionally minor little things like that, really more because knowing what's going to happen down the road and not wanting to, tip your hand and
right.
with certain images. Exactly. So then obviously then it goes to the inking stage, but then the finished pencils or the approved pencils also go to the letterer, who can lay out digitally the letters while the inking is being done, which helps save time on the back end.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
What a process.
Yeah, and again, lettering is something that's also important, because if it's done right, it blends with the story well and enhances it. But if it's jarring, it takes you out of what's going on the page and the dialogue.
Yep.
But we have a question here from Mark Andrews, and it's a good question. He says, Doug, did you know what your characters looked like before they were drawn, or did you see them for the first time after Delilah drew them? Now, I think, and I'd like to preface this, like, when I think of a character, you always have an image in your mind. Did that image come out like he was asked, like he's saying, through Delilah, or did you guys have to collaborate on that to get it to where you needed it?
So yeah, Delia, I gave Delia descriptions. No worries. I gave Delia character descriptions because I did have a pretty good idea in my mind of what I want them to look like. But just like with script writing, I didn't want to be overly prescriptive, and I wanted to give the artists Delia and Chase some creative freedom. So, for example, Delia would ask me, well, is there an actor that you want each character to look like? After, I might say this character is like, 41 years old, biracial, and wears, this color top and or this type of shirt and this type of pants. And she would say, oh, well, is there an actress that you want it to look like? And that I avoided ever answering, because I wanted to allow the art team some creative freedom to draw the character that would interest them. If your artists like what they're drawing, I think you're going to get more passion out of that. So I always I didn't do that, and tried to make sure they had the room to play around a little bit.
I don't know, Doug.
give
Doug, I
some
think I
unique-
saw myself in one of the, think I saw myself in issue number 4. That's all I want to say. That's all I want to say.
Oh my gosh.
But that's
Yeah.
smart too, because that keeps them actively interested, right?
Right.
That's the hope, you know, and it allows them to do a little research, you know, like there's a Native American group in 1860s, and when I talked to Chase, you know, I said, okay, this character's, you know, big, strong. He's kind of like the Batman. You know, if there's a Batman in the story, this is who it is. So big, strong, fierce, but
Imposing, yeah.
yeah, but hey, you know, we want it to be period accurate, so you can do some research on the outfit, but you make the decision, you know, or whether they're wearing a shirt, they're not wearing a shirt, what their pants look like, how they wear their hair. These are all things that you, as the artist, what's the look of Grey Wolf that makes that character interesting to you as the artist? So when you draw them, it's exciting for you.
Right.
That must-
Because it's important for them to enjoy their process too.
Right. That has to be Joe, right? He is Grey Wolf.
You know,
Without
that
a
was
doubt.
the one I was looking at.
That's
It
it.
resembles me, Jim, when I was like 25 years old. It's amazing, the resemblance.
Unbelievable.
Now let's talk about in a minute or two, we're going to have you give like the 2-minute pitch on the story, but I want to talk about the fact that it's non-linear storytelling. What's the appeal to that for you? And have you delved into non-linear storytelling before, or was just a concept that popped in your mind that it demanded to be non-linear? And was that daunting to have to juggle timelines?
So I love nonlinear stories, and there's many examples. The obvious, to me, the most obvious ones are most of Christopher Nolan's movies. And yeah, I just find it fascinating, and I think it lends itself to making a story more interesting, and it especially lends itself to revealing mysteries. You know, because you can set something up, and people don't know why that happened or what's going on, and then you can fill in the backstory later with that. So I just really like those stories. They can be more difficult to write.
Right.
When I outlined the entire story, I kind of outlined certain arcs in traditional beginning, middle, end fashion, and then kind of chopped it up and decided what I wanted to put where to roll out the especially the mysteries in the story. And there are multiple mysteries. It's not just a whodunit. So
nice.
And who doesn't like a good mystery?
Yeah.
I think there's so many good ones out there. Dead Again being one of my favorites, and that's a non-linear story. I don't know if you've ever seen that film. It's Kenneth Branagh directed. Amazing.
I'm not sure if I've seen that. Even stories that tend to be told more traditionally, like a Game of Thrones, will have flashbacks and things like that. It's not fully a nonlinear story, but it uses those elements as well. They're just if there's a Netflix series called Dark that's about time travel. That is a real mind bender and a great example of that. My Beth always gets angry when I bring up Lost because they didn't know where they were going with it, and she's like, "If you ever talk about Lost, people will think you don't know where you're going."
Only season 3.
Yeah, but Lost, I think, did that well. Especially early on, where you'd see where they were on the island, and then they would flash back to their lives and what happened before being on the island. So there's lots of great stories told that way. And for the most part, I think it really lends itself well to this type of story, especially because it's set in multiple time periods. And really the span is about 130 years. So it's not,
Nice.
you know, you have very, very different time periods being dealt with.
So Doug, before you give your pitch on the story, as Gary had said, you spoke about how you set up the characters for the artists, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you must have done the same thing with respect to you and the writing. In other words, you know, the characters' voice, their personality, their background, maybe even speech patterns, you know, because I've seen some of that in isolation. So how do you go about doing that when you have this non-linear story in 4 different time periods with different type of you know, kind of historical language? And I mean, it seems like it would have been very complicated and take a lot of time. But you probably found some sort of a great shortcut to doing that. So how did you go about doing that so that each character remains true to his or herself throughout the storylines?
I think it's one of the more challenging things, especially in a story that has so many different characters. Yeah. But I think the important thing is, as you bring out each character, it is putting yourself in their shoes, but understanding how they're like you and how they're different from you. And I think that's important because characters become very two-dimensional, especially bad guys become very two-dimensional when they're the hoo-hoo ha-ha, I want to rule the world, I'm
Right.
evil. Like there's you know, there's no depth to that.
Right.
So for
no
example,
reason to care about them.
Yeah. So in isolation in the late, you know, in the 1869 time period, which is right after the Civil War, you have a group of people who are still trying to cling to slavery. And it might seem very, very hard to figure out, like, okay, that's a bad guy. How could I relate to that? But you have to kind of get in their head. Okay, how were they raised? What power were they given? How are they feeling like, you know, the North is coming in and taking my rights away? Even if you strongly disagree with that perspective, you at least have to get in the mind and try and figure out what the motivating factor is for that individual, even if they're doing things that are, you know, abhorrent to you. And I know, Joe, when you and I have talked about other stories related to World War II, and like how that can be really hard if your bad guys are Nazis, but if you still want to make a 3-dimensional villain, you have to try and at least understand what their motivation is, so that they don't become just a ha ha ha, I'm a bad guy character.
Right.
Nice.
Okay.
The good guys are easier because it's easier to get into their motivations. But you also want to explore elements of their personality. Is this person stoic? Are they a act more, talk less person? Are they chatty? Are they funny? Are they angry? Yeah. What's at their core being, and why are they that way? So it's realistic. And then I think then balancing the dialogue is always tricky, because kind of a go-to writing trick is conflict is more interesting than agreement. So, and if you know this and you watch television shows, it's why characters all the time will like get in fights with people that it makes no sense that they
Same with comic
with.
books, right? Every superhero's got to meet each other and fight before they ask one
Yeah,
question.
exactly. That sounds great.
Exactly. So, but I think the challenge is finding ways to delve into conflict, but not do it in a derived way so that it becomes silly. Like, why is this good guy in a fist fight with
right,
that
you don't
guy.
want it to be a parody of itself.
Exactly. So,
But now, Doug, as you go through this story, which is a fairly long story, right? At one time, I remember you saying that if it were individual issues, it would be potentially north of 30 issues, right?
yes.
So do these characters, as you write this out, and you get into the actual writing rather than whatever kind of general, storyline, storyboard type of thing you've got going, do they change? Do they change as they go along? Do you figure, well, this happened, but now their reaction I thought would be like this earlier, but because of this type of situation, they might react differently or say something differently. So do they change along the line of this story as you go along?
Joe stole my question.
Yeah, they do. And that can be good and that could be bad. I think it's good because you start out thinking about what the character is going to be like. When you start putting them in situations, getting in their mind and having conversations and dialogue, then that changes because you start to react, and have them react. And they do take on a voice of themselves in your mind. What I think is the real challenge, especially in a story like Isolation, is there are a lot of characters that you might really like. And as a writer, you relate to them and you grow fond of them. And Isolation, which Joe knows, but for those watching who haven't read it, every issue has at least one murder in it, sometimes multiple killings.
Wow.
Now, once in a while, that's stormtroopery bad guys, but there are very, very important characters in the story that you grow to like who don't make it out. And I think you have to resist the urge, like, oh, I really like that character. I know readers really like that character. And you have to be true to the story. And especially when it's, one that's all about an extreme number of murders that take place in this secretive community during these 3 time periods.
And I think too, like you can have like an end game for a character, but when you're writing someone and once they take on that voice of their own, you get a pretty solid feeling of what you're writing's if that character would act that way or not.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think some people would force the structure into the story they're telling, but I think that's a mistake. I think once your character has that defined voice, you got to follow their voice or else you end up compromising the character.
Yeah. Yeah. I there's a, hopefully after the trade comes out, when people get to read the first chapter of Ghosts and Nightmares, there is a shocking death. And it was tricky to write because you want to do it in a way that's true to the story, but that is also sensitive, as sensitive as you can be, killing off a character that might be someone's favorite person and why they read the story in the first place. So,
Right.
Don't do it, Doug. Don't do it.
Joe, your character can only go so long.
Yeah, we had to let you go, Joe. We had to let you go.
Joe lives.
All right.
Well, it's just like you brought up Game of Thrones. I mean, they did that. What, after 3 episodes, they killed the main Stark guy, and I was just starting to like him. I was like, oh, this is going to be good. I love this actor. Yeah. He's a great actor. I've seen him in this and this. What? He's dead. That's what. But it kept me going though. Mm-hmm. It kept you going. What's going to happen now?
And when you're writing too, I think, and you can tell me if this is true for you, Doug. But when you're writing the characters, especially some of the ones that have gray areas, and they're interesting, but that's when you start having once that character gets defined in your head and their voice is coming through, that's a lot of fun to write.
Yeah, absolutely.
It really starts giving you a good pacing. You really start just getting the energy.
Yeah, once you have the characters down, it does make the writing, especially dialogue, less tedious because you put them in the situation and they speak and they interact with each other and they go where they're supposed to go.
Now we're going to take a look at your Kickstarter here in a moment, but before we do that, why don't you give the 2-minute pitch, which I'm sure you've got down now? Like what? Let's bring in some. You're already backed. You're already way in the good. But there's somebody out there that needs to read this story that it's going to be their favorite story, and they don't know about it yet.
Yeah.
Tell
Sell
them
me,
why
brother.
this is going to
Sell
be
me.
their favorite story, why they need to take a chance on it.
Sell me right now. I've never read it. I've got the phone ready. The Kickstarter's right here. Give me the 2-minute pitch, because I seriously have never read it.
So I will do that. Isolation, as I mentioned, is a nonlinear mystery about a secretive community hidden in mountains in Louisiana that experienced 3 periods of extreme murders: 1869, 1919, and 1949. And then it disappeared without a trace. And in the early 1990s, a researcher comes along or comes across during her research some documents that are kind of the last existing evidence of isolation. And as she begins to explore the mystery, it endangers her because there is a bigger world that isolation, the community, is a part of, and people don't want the truth of isolation coming out.
It's just fantastic. You have to get it.
Nice.
I mean, I've not read anything like that, and I've read a lot of comic books and a lot of stories. And clearly,
okay, Joe says it's good.
Well done.
I'm gonna get it after the show. I'm gonna jump into Kickstarter.
Well,
I like
Jim,
your
that's
2
'cause
minutes.
the link is in the description below. I made it easy for you to do so.
Oh yes, sir.
But let's take a look.
Saying, "Sell me or else, Marcus. You got to get this book. It's just fantastic."
Now I'm going to make this full screen again, Doug, and we're going to scroll down, and we're just going to let you talk as we're looking at things, and we'll ask you questions as we go.
Sounds good.
But let me make this full screen again so they get a good view of it. They've all seen us, so they know what we look like. So let's. All right. So now, as we go down, so you're already well more than pledged, which is great. But we're going to go down here. You get the story page. You got, of course, your author credit over here. But let's talk about the covers, because people haven't really seen the covers. So now, what were the directions you were given on the covers? Was this complete artist interpretation, or did you have specific things in mind when you were having these covers made for you?
This was pretty much all Delia. After
and this is beautiful, by the way.
I think it's an amazing cover. We discussed some different options, but she was inspired by 80s horror movie posters and took elements from 2 different time periods. The axe murder in the story is in 1949, and that is our main researcher, Mandy Connors, reflected in the axe. And
that's brilliant.
And it really, as soon as she pitched that idea for the cover, it was a no-brainer. It was like, oh yeah, definitely.
And I'm already sold on the main person right there. Just seeing her in the blade.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's kind of shining looking.
Yeah.
All right. So now what are we looking at here, Doug?
So a lot of wonderful people, Joe of which was one, wrote reviews of Isolation, and we put some of the quotes that they gave us with images to help promote the Kickstarter before it launched. So these few images, you'll see quotes from, a New Yorker writer to YouTubers to, all sorts of people. This was the Comic-Con exclusive cover done by our letterer, Beth Charlin, who is also an incredibly talented artist. And this was sold at San Diego Comic-Con when we launched Isolation.
So that's really cool too. And that's the main character again that Delia put in the blade, right?
Yep, that is her. Now, I got a funny story for you about that cover.
Sure.
She actually put real isolation headlines and things from the scripts of issues of isolation in the background or overlaying that character. There were certain things that we had to redact, and she, in her first draft, forgot to. So if someone was really eagle-eyed, we did catch it before it went out. It actually gave away a very important murder in about chapter 6. So, but we got that out of there.
Good catch, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Now another cool panel. So as we see these panels too, like what else? Like who did the art on this panel?
That's Delia Gunderson.
Again, I love this setup. It's simple. It's effective. I like that. I like the framing of the character on the horse.
Yep, beautiful.
Now this is cool.
Yep,
this is the one right here.
This is the cover to issue 2, and I own the original art for the issue 1 cover. Reggie owns this one.
Now, with these great covers by Adelia, where can people find her and follow her, Doug?
So on Instagram, I think it might be Adelia, because Delia is short for Adelia Gunderson on Instagram. If you search Adelia Gunderson, you'll find her work.
And can one of my mods in the chat please put her link up if you guys could? I would appreciate it. All right, and then right here we got another review, but another great panel. Is this again Adelia?
This is Chase.
Chase, okay.
So, yep, Chase was the primary artist on issues 3 and 4, although Delia did some interiors on issue 4 as well.
Now, those are some crazed looks. You know, there's troubles about to ensue. All right, and then, of course,
sorry,
beautiful cover.
Yeah, sorry, I lost you for a second. Yes, this cover was by Elena Morton, who was Delia's artist assistant on issue number 1 and 2, who helped her with layouts.
Nice. And again, is this some people getting their first shot at doing a comic cover, right?
Yeah, I think we were not Delia's, but Delia had been hired to do a comic book for a band. I think it's Dianthesis or Dianthus. And but Isolation came out before it was released. So I think it was her first full published comic. Isolation was.
Ooh, and now we have a mystery figure with an axe.
There's your axe murder. And the person we had to tweak their shoes. This is Grey Wolf, and this is the cover for issue number 3. Astute observers will have noticed that in each cover, there's a reflection motif that's going on.
I was going to mention that. I'm like, this is a callback to Delia's cover.
Absolutely. And this one, we've generally avoided homage covers, with the exception of a Death Dealer homage that we had to do for issue number 1. This was the closest. It's not a Hulk. I just blanked on the number. The classic Wolverine.
Oh yeah, like 341 or something like that.
Yeah, it's not really an homage to that, but there is an element of it reflected in this with the.
And you did do one other homage cover, which your brother did, correct?
Oh, that's true. Actually, I take that back. We did Dave and Adams cover. Was the Dark Knight number 1 homage. So we did do that. And also issue number 1, there was a Comic Tom exclusive that was a Tomb of Dracula homage cover as well.
Oh, nice.
Yep.
So another good panel shot here.
That's my favorite. I have the original to that page too.
Now what I like is this whole page is full, and if you're not looking really closely, you're not going to notice the person in the doorway in the background.
Yep. There's a lot. If you dig
and
into
you
that
guys
panel.
are covering someone up with the Matt Woods Comics YouTuber. You're covering up part of the mystery.
I think that was an inlay for the next panel.
Thought you were being cheeky with it.
Every time you look at these things, you notice something else, because I originally did not notice that person in the doorway.
Now, this is the cover for issue number 4. Beautiful. All of these covers are the A covers by Delia.
And again, reflected in the lantern glass.
Yep. And this features 2 very important characters in the 1869 story, Will Trenlow and John Jackson.
Now, the coloring on these covers, too. I mean, we're not mentioning the colorist, but the coloring's amazing on these covers.
Delia painted these. These are watercolor painted by...
so it's 100% her.
Yes,
wow.
These are all Delia.
Wow.
Yep.
Because her color palette that she's picking is beautiful.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right, we got Meet the Creative Team. Now, talk a little bit about your stretch goals here and where we're at currently.
Yeah. So our first stretch goal, we added 4 extra bonus pages of content, which are a page of thumbnails, a couple pencil pages, and then a fully penciled but not yet inked with the lettering overlay to give the full process, because we already were including character design pages and script pages. So this now you'll see from conception to completion an example of the creative process. So we hit that. And we have hit our second stretch goal, even though we're on Kickstarter slightly under. We've had a few people reach out directly who I know very well, who asked to purchase without signing up for Kickstarter. So we're actually past the second stretch goal.
So we're going to get that deleted scene.
Nice.
Yep. And that will, the thing that I really liked about that scene is we had to condense for space a scene that introduced a character that just, we just couldn't fit it in that issue. So we said, well, we'll just bring them into the story, down the line when we need to, because we just don't have the room for it. So now whoever gets the trade will get a first appearance as well.
Nice.
Yeah,
just for the speckers out there. Just kidding.
I'm specking, man. I'm getting it tonight after the show.
Get 20 copies. I won't stop you.
Now, we'll wrap this up soon too. We've been going for an hour, believe it or not.
Wow.
But how excited, obviously when you get the news that it's no longer going to be there due to circumstances, and, and then you're like, I still have this story to tell. How excited was the whole creative team once you guys decided to go the Kickstarter route, that you guys would still be completing this tale?
Very, very excited.
Because you want to see your vision through, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? We like working together on the project. It's, Joe's aware of this. I wrote the first of 3 story arcs of Isolation as a draft novel before Reggie picked it up. So I have a draft novel of the first, what would be the first 12 chapters. So the first 4 issues, Ghosts and Nightmares, which is the second volume, and then Revelation, which is the 3rd volume. And I could release that, and I might someday, but it's a very visual story. I love it in comic book form. And as long as we can keep going it in comic book form, we want to keep doing that.
Right, because you're getting your story told, and you're getting it visually out there in 2 different mediums now, basically, which is nice.
Yeah. And I think thanks to you sharing this for your audience, I can talk about how great the artists are, but when you see their work, it's not, I'm not just saying that because I work with them. We truly found really hardworking, talented individuals who've honed their craft and are getting their break and exposure to the world. And I think all could go on, and you could hear their names for many years to come.
Right. And Adelia's covers, I mean, and her art is just amazing for this type of story. It's like when you're looking at those, they create an atmosphere. They put you in a frame of mind.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, her art sets you up to be immersed.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Chase's is in issue 3 and 4 has a lot of energy to it. So if you look at some of like Delia's art is just stunning. It's beautiful. She paints everything in black and white, which I think I never answered that, Gary, but the reason it was black and white is partially because we thought it would look really great that way and kind of have a noir vibe to it. But it's also practical. There's a reason a lot of indie stories over the years have been done in black and white. It makes it less expensive, and creating a comic book is not a cheap process. So
right.
Now, and what you said about Chase was true, because that one panel we showed with all the guys on there was very kinetic. There was a lot of energy in those faces. Mm-hmm. They were about to bring some hell wherever they were at, and it was about to happen. And you got that just through that panel. Yep.
I think Joe might be digging through to show the Dark Knight homage my brother Dave did.
I got it.
All right, let me make Joe big so he can show this stuff for Dave.
That's cool.
And that is Grey Wolf, who you saw on the cover of issue number 3, and Adam Shermer, who is a friend of Dave's and mine, but is also a tremendous artist in his own right. Did all the color work on it too. So it and some of that the trade dress layout to give it that full Dark Knight vibe.
Nice.
Beautiful.
Gorgeous. So, one, I want to say congratulations, Doug, because it's great that you've already got the support. It's great that it's already funded. 2, I hope that in some way we can contribute to that by getting it to new people because you never know who's going to read this. It'll become their favorite story. You never know.
Yeah.
So hopefully we reach somebody tonight that's going to love this and connect with it and think it's the best stuff they've ever put their eyes on. And I hope that happens for you, because it's a brilliant looking project. It's gorgeous. I can't wait to read it myself. But where are your next appearances happening? Do you have any more interviews scheduled?
I do. This Saturday night, I'm blanking on the time. I think it's 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. I'm on with Trev, the shipping guru. And I believe the following weekend, on Saturday, I'm on with Phil Tastic. Nice. And I'm waiting for a date. I'm supposed to be on Swaggle House Comics, if anybody knows Mickey and his channel, which is also a fantastic.
Have you reached out to K-pop yet?
No. Maybe you can connect me with them, because I don't know them. So that would be awesome.
Well, yeah, I'll send you her link, and I'll also pre-mention it to her. But
that would be great.
Nobody does Kickstarter promotions better than Katie.
Yeah,
Katie's the GOAT at it. She is the absolute best.
Well, and thanks for connecting.
She will get many more eyes on your project as well. She has her own audience that tunes in just for the Kickstarters.
Right. That's great. I appreciate it.
It would be remiss if you didn't get on there somehow.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah, and Dave, I could send her a note too if you want.
Thank you, Joe.
I know her somewhat too.
And you'll love her. Katie is top-notch people. She's fantastic.
Awesome. I appreciate it. And Gary, I appreciate you having me on the show and highlighting the Kickstarter and isolation for your audience. It's great.
Anytime. You're always welcome on the channel. You already know that. All you have to do is tell me you want to be on, and we'll get you on. That's never an issue. When I do these things
here on the panel that has read the book, I just have to tell you. I mean, listen, I'm an old guy. I've read a lot of comic books. I've read a lot of horror books. I've read a lot of stuff like that. This book is literally one of the best that I've read. I really mean it sincerely, you know. And you need to cough up some money so I can see how this story ends. I mean, you just
Right.
have to do it.
No ulterior motives at all.
Well, see, I'm with you, Joe, because I have to have an ending. Now I put
Yeah.
my money into getting this
The
first
thing is,
volume.
it's
I need more.
It's so well written, and you've seen the art, you know. And I have, I mean, I've got almost all of the all the covers here and everything, and a lot of them are signed by the artists and by Doug and Reggie and Dave and whatever else. But the thing about it is, it's just so well written, and the way, again, every time you look at it and you read it, you can put it away for a month or 2 or 3 or 4 and just pull it out and read it again. And it's almost as if you're reading it for the first time, you know, as you go through it and you see, and I would say, you know, and you gave this a good kind of view, Gary, but spend some time on each page. I mean, spend some time looking at the panels and at the art that's there. And you can enjoy the art, but the panels and the interpretation of the story is so well done that, and I've said this before, but every time I look at it and if I spend time on the panels, I see something I didn't see before.
Nice.
And it just builds on the mystery. I mean, I just have to say it's a fantastic story, and you really, really should cough up a couple of bucks and get it, you know. And if you disagree, let me know. I mean, I'm on YouTube, I'm on Instagram, but you won't. I know you'll say it's fantastic.
No, that's a great endorsement.
That's a great endorsement right there. Just putting it down, so I'm gonna have to get it and see. I may have to get a couple because I know somebody that loves a good mystery.
But Doug, we do appreciate you coming on and giving us all this insider information and the breakdown. I know you probably answered a lot of questions about it already. Hopefully tonight we asked you some new ones. We didn't go the same route as other people. We try to keep it fresh here, so you as the author aren't getting bored saying the same things over and over.
Well, thank you again. It was my pleasure. This was a lot of fun. You kept me on my toes on the hot seat, and it was fun chatting about isolation with you.
All right, so this Saturday night, guys, go check out Trev the Shipping Guru's channel, where you'll see Doug promoting this once again, and get some more probably different insights over there. And let's just keep this isolation train rolling, and let's get you to 800% and just have some fun with this. You're in the right community. We'll all help you as much as we can.
That is an amazing and very true thing.
Yeah, Trevor's on Sunday night.
I'm sorry, on Sunday. Thank you, Tina.
Sunday.
Oh, I'm sorry. I said Saturday. It's not. My bad. Thank you, Tina. Sunday night, Trev show, not Saturday night. Yeah, Trev, I have if you're in there, Trev, I got it on my calendar. I'll be there Sunday.
Is he Doug all by himself on Saturday?
Yeah. Where is everybody?
Where is everybody? Where's Trev?
Well, again, congratulations on a successful transfer over to Kickstarter. Super happy for you. Absolute pleasure to have you on the channel again. And we'll go around real quick. I want to say thank you to the chat. And if you guys are watching this on the rewind, if you're new to the channel, if you're new to Doug or any of us here, just go check out his Kickstarter. Just put eyes on it. See if it's for you. All right. We're not saying, we're just saying take a look. You never know what your next favorite read's going to be. It might be this. This might be the comic you live and die by, where you take it everywhere you go. It might be the guilty pleasure of your life that you just can't put down. And there's a lot of
that's not what I heard. I heard Joe say you have to get it, people. That's what I heard. Now you got to respect Joe, so I got to get it.
You're just scared of Bruno.
I am scared of Bruno. I'm not gonna lie. That alter ego is just freaking me out.
But you can. We're not gonna go around and do the normal where we talk about what we all have coming up, because this is a straight focus on the Kickstarter show. You can catch me and Joe tomorrow night. Go to his Instagram for more on that. But go check out Doug's Instagram. Like I said, I've had it scrolling all show. You'll find out all his appearances, all his current project updates. He's doing lives every time there's a new milestone. He's talking on their live. You guys can keep up with this project best and with Doug by following him on Instagram and listening to his stories and looking at his posts and content. So as we like to end these things, Doug, again, thank you. Joe, Jim, I appreciate you guys being here. You know, I like more than my perspective on shows. So I appreciate having you guys there to ask your own questions as well. And as we like to end these things, keep it casual.